The morning of August 14, 2018, began like any other in the Italian port city of Genoa. Commuters crossed the Morandi Bridge, trucks rumbled along, and life unfolded across the concrete span. At 11:36 a.m., the unthinkable happened. A section of the bridge, one of Italy's most important highways, collapsed without warning. Cars, trucks, entire sections of road plunged into the void. 43 people lost their lives. The nation was stunned. Images of twisted steel and shattered concrete flashed across every screen. The disaster was not just an engineering failure, it was a human tragedy that echoed around the world. Within hours, headlines pointed to the company responsible for maintaining the bridge, Autostrade per l'Italia. That company was controlled by the Benetton family. Until that day, the Benettons were known for color. For decades, their name conjured up rainbow sweaters, bold advertising, and a global fashion empire. But now, their name would be linked to concrete, collapse, and grief. In the days that followed, the public mood turned from shock to anger. Italians demanded answers. How could such a vital structure fail so catastrophically? Who was responsible? Newspapers, politicians, and grieving families zeroed in on the company behind the bridge's upkeep. And behind that company was the Benetton family. They were no longer just fashion entrepreneurs or savvy investors. Overnight, the Benettons became the face of a national scandal. Footage of their iconic stores now ran side by side with images of the ruined bridge. Activists staged protests outside Benetton boutiques. Social media exploded with calls for boycotts. Suddenly, sweaters and shirts seemed trivial. The government acted with rare speed. Investigations were launched. Prosecutors examined every contract, every inspection report. Politicians called for Autostrade per l'Italia to be stripped of its concessions. The Benetton family's business was now under a microscope, every decision scrutinized in the harshest light. For decades, the Benettons had been celebrated as self-made visionaries. Their story was woven into Italian culture, 4 siblings from a small town, building one of the world's most recognizable brands. Now that legend was under attack. Reporters dug deep into the family's sprawling business interests. Connections emerged between Ediziani, the Benetton holding company, and a web of infrastructure assets throughout Italy. Anger at the bridge collapse quickly spread beyond Genoa. Across the country, people questioned whether privatization of public infrastructure had gone too far. The Benettons, once symbols of Italian ingenuity, were cast as distant tycoons profiting from the nation's highways. Every detail became fodder for debate. How much money had Autostrade made? What had it spent on maintenance? Was profit put ahead of safety? As the investigation deepened, so did the sense of crisis. The family's fortune, carefully built over generations, now seemed precarious. Shares in Benetton-related companies fell sharply. Analysts speculated about whether the family could hold on to their empire. The siblings, now older and mostly out of the spotlight, were forced back into public view. Behind closed doors, the Benettons faced urgent decisions. Should they fight to keep their grip on Autostrade? Should they step away and protect what remained of their reputation? For the first time in decades, Italy's most famous business family seemed unsure. The collapse of the Morandi Bridge was not just a tragedy for Genoa. It threatened to unravel the empire the Benettons had built. Public opinion became a tide that could not be turned. Every statement from the family was analyzed and criticized. Calls for justice grew louder with each passing day. It did not matter that the Benettons themselves had not bolted the bridge together. In the eyes of many, they were responsible. The pressure was relentless. The government began the process of revoking Autostrade's contracts. Lawsuits multiplied. Politicians warned that those profiting from public assets would be held accountable. Families of the victims demanded compensation and answers. Media coverage was non-stop. The Benetton name, once linked with Italian style, now appeared in headlines about disaster, investigation, and anger. For the four siblings who had started with a handful of knit sweaters, it was a nightmare. Their legacy, built on color, creativity, and business acumen, was now stained by tragedy. Their business empire faced an existential threat. In boardrooms and family meetings, the Benettons weighed their options. Could their reputation ever recover? The collapse did not just shake the concrete of Genoa, it rattled the foundations of the Benetton business model. For decades, they had expanded from sweaters to supermarkets, from fashion to highways. Now that strategy seemed perilous. Was it wise to be involved in so many sectors? Had the quest for growth finally gone too far? In the months that followed, the Benettons were forced to make painful choices. As government pressure mounted, they began talks to sell their stake in Autostrade. For the first time in half a century, the family faced the possibility of losing one of their crown jewels. Meanwhile, profits from their once flourishing fashion business continued to decline. The fall from grace was swift and public. Friends and allies distanced themselves. Some former employees and partners spoke out. The Benettons tried to defend their record. They pointed to decades of investment, job creation, and philanthropy, but the public was in no mood to listen. The narrative had shifted, and it was out of their control. The Morandi Bridge disaster became an inflection point for Italy. It sparked a reckoning about business, politics, and public safety. For the Benetton family, it was a personal reckoning as well. Decades of careful reputation management was swept away in a matter of days. Their fortune, once seen as a testament to Italian excellence, was now a symbol of everything that could go wrong. Inside the family, the stress was immense. Gilberto, the sibling who had managed finances for decades, died just a few months after the collapse. It was the end of an era. The remaining siblings, aging and weary, watched as their life's work teetered on the brink. Younger family members, newly in charge, had to navigate a landscape transformed by scandal. In the end, the Benettons agreed to sell their highway business. It was a bitter decision, forced by the weight of public anger and political necessity. The family's fortune survived, but was diminished. Their public standing was forever changed. How did it come to this? How did four siblings from Treviso, who built a global empire from scratch, become the targets of national fury? The story of the Benetton family is not just about success, but about risk, ambition, and the price of power. To understand their fall, we must go back to the beginning. Long before the bridge collapsed, before the scandals and the headlines, there was only a modest family and a single knitted sweater. The path from triumph to crisis is never simple. For the Benettons, it was paved with bold decisions, startling ambition, and in the end, tragic consequences. Chapter 2, Roots in Treviso, Four Siblings, One Dream. Treviso, northern Italy. The Second World War has just ended. Streets are dusty, quiet, and marked by hardship. For most, the future feels uncertain. But inside a modest house, four children grow up learning resilience the hard way. Luciano is the eldest, careful and observant. Giuliana, a quick learner with nimble fingers, loves to knit. Gilberto is analytical and calm, always asking questions. Carlo, the youngest, is quiet but determined. Their father works hard, but money is always tight. The family's fortunes depend on perseverance and thrift. From a young age, the siblings learn to share everything: food, clothes, even dreams. Italy itself is changing rapidly. The old world is gone, but a new one has not yet arrived. Factories reopen, but work is scarce. Treviso is no exception. The Benetton children watch their parents sacrifice for small comforts. Every meal is a reminder: waste is not an option. At school, Luciano stands out. He is ambitious but not loud. He notices how people dress, how they move. Giuliana prefers to stay home, perfecting her knitting. She is creative, turning leftover yarn into new designs. Gilberto is fascinated by numbers. He reads any newspaper he can find, following stories of business and politics. Carlo, the youngest, often helps their mother run errands. He learns the rhythms of daily life, the value of routine. Despite their different personalities, the siblings are close. They develop a quiet understanding. Each knows their strengths and their limits. In the evenings, they gather in the kitchen. Their mother sews clothes for neighbors. Their father counts coins, stretching every lira. Sometimes, the children listen in silence as their parents talk about the past, the war, the sacrifices, the hope for something better. One winter, tragedy strikes. The siblings' father dies unexpectedly. The loss is sudden and shattering. Luciano, barely a teenager, becomes the man of the house overnight. Giuliana's skills with a needle are no longer a hobby, they are a way to help feed the family. Each child feels the pressure, but none give up. Instead, they lean on each other. There is no safety net, just determination and grit. The years pass. The Italian economy begins to recover. Factories hum again, and people crave color after the gray years of war. Giuliana's sweaters, once made out of necessity, start to draw attention. Neighbors ask for custom pieces. The orders grow. Luciano sees an opportunity. He borrows a bicycle and begins delivering his sister's work around town. He notices what sells and who buys. Gilberto, now a teenager, offers to keep track of the orders and payments. He draws up simple ledgers, learning business by doing. Carlo, still the youngest, helps with deliveries and runs errands. Soon, what began as survival transforms into ambition. The siblings talk quietly about their future. Could they really build something more? Is there space for them in the world of business? In the 1950s and early 1960s, Italy enters a period of economic boom. Televisions appear in shop windows. People begin to dream again, but the Benettons remain cautious. They watch, they learn, and they save. Luciano begins to visit shops in other towns, studying what's new in fashion. He sees that color is coming back in style. Giuliana experiments with bold hues and patterns. Her sweaters stand out in shop windows. Customers notice. Despite their modest means, the siblings act boldly. Luciano proposes something radical. Instead of working for someone else, why not start their own business? The risk is huge. Failure could mean disaster. For the Benettons, however, risk is nothing new. They debate late into the night. Each sibling brings a different concern. Giuliana worries about the quality of her work. Gilberto calculates costs and margins. Carlo asks about production and delivery. Luciano is restless but determined. He convinces his siblings that they have nothing to lose. They pool their savings. Every lira is precious. Giuliana knits as fast as she can, creating enough stock for a small launch. Their mother helps, encouraging her children to aim high. The young Benettons do not dream of luxury or fame. They seek security, independence, and maybe a measure of pride. Luciano sets out to find their first clients. He walks for hours, knocking on shop doors and pitching the idea of Benetton knitwear. Rejection is common, but when a store owner finally agrees to buy a small batch, it feels like a victory. It is a turning point. The siblings realize that together they can accomplish more than they ever could alone. The decision is made. They will launch their own company. Each sibling will play a role. Luciano will handle sales and strategy. Giuliana will oversee design and production. Gilberto will manage the books. Carlo, though still young, will assist wherever needed. The plan is simple, but their ambition is growing. Their first workshop is little more than a cramped room filled with yarn and hope, but it is theirs. Every sweater sold is a step closer to stability. Friends and neighbors support them, spreading word of the Benetton name. Little by little, the siblings build a reputation for quality and color. They do not imagine global fame or wealth. In these early days, survival and dignity are enough. Late at night, when the day's work is done, the siblings talk about the future. What if they could sell not just in Treviso, but across Veneto? What if their name could stand for something new, something bright and modern, in a world still haunted by shadows of war? Each question plants a seed. An empire does not spring from nothing. For the Benettons, it grows out of hardship, stubbornness, and the unbreakable bond of family. In post-war Italy, that is more than most can hope for. Still, the siblings know that hope alone is not enough. The real test is just beginning. They do not yet realize it, but their choice will reshape not only their own lives, but the very image of Italian fashion. 4 siblings, 1 dream, and an open road ahead full of risk. The future waits, impatient, unpredictable, and closer than any of them suspects. Chapter 3: The Rise of Color, Luciano's Vision. The town of Belluno wakes slowly. Its streets are quiet at dawn, the air still touched by the chill of the mountains. In a cramped storefront, something is about to change. Luciano Benetton stands at the door, keys in hand, heart pounding. This is not just any shop. It is the first ever to bear the Benetton name. He unlocks the door, steps inside, and breathes in the smell of wool and wood. Racks of sweaters line the walls. Every piece is a riot of color: yellows, reds, blues, greens, all brighter than anything else in town. Luciano runs a finger along the edge of a neatly folded sweater. Giuliana's hands made this. His own hands will try to sell it. People pass by, their eyes drawn to the bold, unfamiliar window display. Who would wear such colors in a land where tradition still rules? Luciano's answer is simple: everyone, if only they are given the chance. He stands behind the counter as the first customers file in. Some hesitate, unsure, others laugh at the spectacle, but a few are curious. They touch the knits, smile at the softness, marvel at the colors. Luciano greets each one with energy and charm. He tells them about the new Italy, about hope and youth, and turning away from the gray past. For some, it is enough. They buy a sweater and leave with a story to tell. Success is not instant, but it is real. Word spreads that there is a shop in Belluno unlike any other. People come from neighboring towns to see it. The siblings' workshop can barely keep up with demand. Luciano's vision is clear. This is only the beginning. Expansion is not easy. Money is tight, and the risks are enormous. Luciano, though, is relentless. He travels across northern Italy, suitcase in hand, meeting with shop owners and suppliers. He negotiates, persuades, and sometimes bluffs. He believes that Benetton can be more than just a family business. It can be a movement. He begins to pitch a radical idea. Why not allow others to open Benetton stores using the family's name and designs? In return, they share profits and follow strict quality rules. It is a model almost unheard of in Italy. Some call it reckless. Luciano calls it genius. The first franchise deals are signed in small towns, then in bigger cities. Shops pop up in Milan, Turin, Florence. Each new location is a test. Some fail, but most succeed, carried by the wave of color and the Benetton promise. Within a few years, the brand becomes a fixture of the Italian high street. With every new store, the siblings' reputation grows. The sight of a Benetton window, splashy, joyful, provocative, becomes a sign of modernity. Young people flock to the shops, eager to buy a piece of the future. The old rules are fading, color is in. The demand for sweaters becomes enormous. Giuliana trains new knitters, most of them women from the surrounding villages. The workshop expands into a real factory. Carlo oversees deliveries, sometimes driving a truck himself. Gilberto handles the cash, keeps the books tight, and chases after late payments. The family works almost around the clock. Still, Luciano is restless. In boardrooms and train compartments, he sketches out new plans. He wants more stores, more colors, more risk. Some nights he cannot sleep, his mind races ahead, already plotting the next step. Others warn him to slow down. He ignores them. He is convinced that speed is everything. His ambition begins to reshape the business. Gradually, Benetton stops thinking like a local shop and starts acting like a corporation. New employees arrive, bringing fresh ideas and professional skills. The siblings must learn to trust outsiders. Sometimes, this is harder than it sounds. The franchise model proves to be a masterstroke. It lets Benetton grow without huge investments in property and staff. Independent store owners take on much of the risk, but also share in the excitement. The network of shops expands across Europe, first France, then Germany, then beyond. The colors remain the key. No other brand dares to use pink and green, orange and blue all together on the same shelf. Stores glow like jewels in the gray European winter. Soon, the Benetton sweater becomes a symbol of youthful rebellion. No longer is it just an item of clothing. It is a statement, a rejection of the drab and the old. By the late 1970s, Benetton is among Italy's fastest-growing companies. The siblings are no longer just survivors, they are pioneers. Journalists start to take notice. Fashion editors visit the shops, puzzled and intrigued. How did a family from Treviso become the talk of Paris and London? Luciano relishes the attention. He gives interviews, spins tales of color and innovation. Some call him a genius. Others say he is reckless, that his obsession with speed will cost the family dearly one day. For now, though, the risks pay off. Inside Benetton's growing headquarters, there is pride, but also tension. Growth comes at a cost. Giuliana feels the pressure to deliver more designs at a faster pace. Gilberto worries about cash flow, about debts, about the risks of so many partners. Carlo, the quietest of the four, misses the days when every sweater passed through his hands. Family dinners start to feel different. Discussions about the future turn into arguments. Should they slow down, consolidate, protect what they have built? Or should they push harder, gamble everything for a shot at true greatness? Luciano is rarely in doubt. He wants to conquer new markets, to see the Benetton name on every main street in Europe. He is not afraid to push, even if it means clashing with his siblings. The drive that built an empire now threatens its foundations. Trust, once unbreakable, is questioned in quiet moments. The family's strength, its unity, begins to show small cracks. Outside, though, the world can only see the success. Magazines feature Benetton as the face of a new Italian miracle. Parents buy their children Benetton sweaters as gifts of hope, of belonging to something bigger. Tourists return from Italy carrying bags emblazoned with the colorful logo. But inside the Benetton story, momentum is a double-edged sword. With every new market entered, every new challenge accepted, the stakes grow higher. The siblings have become symbols not just of fashion, but of risk itself. Benetton is now poised on the edge. Europe beckons, hungry for change. The company stands ready to answer, but beneath the surface, the most important battles are not yet public. Will unity hold, or will ambition tear them apart? Among the rainbow of sweaters, a shadow begins to fall. Chapter 4, Giuliana, the creative heartbeat. In the Benetton family, noise and ambition often fill the room. But in the middle of the commotion, Giuliana works quietly. Her world is softer, slower, caught up in the rhythm of needles and yarn. While others talk about markets and stores, Giuliana talks about color, feel, and texture. Her hands move with speed, but her eyes demand perfection. Every sweater starts and ends with her. It's more than just a pattern or a trend. For Giuliana, knitwear is both memory and hope. She learned to knit as a child, guided by necessity when her family had little to spare. Now, each design carries echoes of those early days, scarves for cold winters, colors inspired by Italian sunsets and spring fields. In the early years, the Benetton factory was a kind of sanctuary for Giuliana. The clatter of machines never drowned out her focus. A single misplaced stitch felt like a betrayal. She would run her fingers over the finished pieces, searching for the smallest flaw. If she found one, that sweater would never reach the sales floor. Some workers joked that Giuliana's standards were impossible, but they admired her all the same. Luciano might negotiate deals and expand the empire, but Giuliana sets the tone. Colors became Benetton's most recognizable signature because she insisted on vibrancy. She rejected the gray, the safe, the expected. She pushed for pinks that glowed, greens that startled, and blues as deep as the Mediterranean. If a shade didn't feel right, she would not let it pass. Manufacturers soon learned there was no shortcut around her approval. Her perfectionism is not just a quirk. It is a shield, protection against mediocrity, against forgetting the roots that made Benetton different from the beginning. When designs from London and Paris start flooding Italian shops, Giuliana remains steadfast. She does not chase fads, she shapes them from her own experience. Yet her quest for excellence comes at a cost. Sweatshop deadlines and mass orders are creeping realities. Sales teams demand more, faster, cheaper. Giuliana feels the pressure mounting with each season. Her workspace shrinks as business meetings and charts threaten to crowd out the creative process. For Giuliana, the tension between craft and commerce is impossible to ignore. Some nights, she stays late, picking apart rejected sweaters, searching for what went wrong. She worries not about profits, but about disappointing someone who buys a Benetton piece expecting joy. Each item to her is a promise. The siblings each have their own domain, but their worlds overlap. Luciano bursts in with news of another store opening. Gilberto arrives with spreadsheets. Carlo speaks little, but brings reports from the factory floor. Each wants Giuliana's input, her blessing, but each has their own priorities. Sometimes they talk over her. Sometimes they don't notice when she slips out for a walk, needing air. Despite the noise, inside the company, it's Giuliana who holds the spirit together. She is the one who remembers birthdays, the one who listens when a worker is ill, the one who brings flowers to the break room. Her presence is a quiet balm for the pressures that swirl around the Benetton headquarters. But even a steady hand can tremble. There are days when Giuliana wonders if the company is slipping away from her. She notices decisions being made without her input. New hires, new machines, new ideas, some inspired, some purely calculated for profit. The world outside is changing fast, and the demands pile up. Benetton's rapid expansion across Europe means bigger orders, tighter deadlines, and more compromises. For every store that opens, Giuliana feels a mix of pride and fear. Will the sweaters carry her touch, or will they lose something vital as the business grows? She fights to keep quality high, but not everyone understands her battles. Some executives see creativity as a luxury. They want Benetton to scale, to match the speed of rivals in London, Paris, New York. Giuliana's perfectionism is sometimes called old-fashioned or impractical. She feels isolated, even within her own family. Still, her influence persists. She is a teacher to young designers, pushing them to see knitwear as more than a product. She reminds them that color can wake a person up, that a scarf can comfort a grieving child. She walks the factory floor, offering advice, never losing her patience with beginners. The tension between artistry and commerce becomes sharper as the company grows. Sometimes, Giuliana's creations are reworked, diluted, or dropped entirely. Sometimes her choices are overruled, not with malice, but with a nod to the bottom line. Each time she feels the loss personally. As Benetton's name begins to echo in foreign cities, Giuliana feels the pressure mount within her own home. She loves her brothers, but she cannot always agree with them. Family dinners become battlegrounds for ideas. Her position is both central and fragile. There are moments, quiet and unplanned, when Giuliana sits alone with a bundle of rejected fabrics. She wonders if she has failed the brand, or if the brand is failing her. The world outside moves quickly, but inside, Giuliana's heart beats in time with the slow, careful work of creation. No one else in the family can do what she does. No one else sees color with the same clarity or feels the weight of a single misknit row. But as the company grows, Giuliana's influence is tested again and again. She is determined to hold the line, to keep Benetton true to its roots. Yet she knows the forces gathering outside the factory walls. Rivals copy her designs at breakneck speed. Mass production looms as an ever-present threat. Quality control is stretched thin. Still, she refuses to surrender. She teaches, she critiques, she spends hours with the youngest knitters. Each lesson is a small act of defiance against the encroaching tide of fast fashion. Tensions grow not only within the company, but within Giuliana herself. Perfection is a gift and a curse. It wins admiration, but also brings loneliness. In moments of quiet, she wonders how much longer she can fight to keep the Benetton name meaningful. As the world seems to spin faster, Giuliana's approach remains the same. She believes that a sweater, perfectly made, can tell a story the way no advertisement ever could. She holds onto this faith, even as meetings become more frequent and the pressure more intense. One afternoon, she overhears a conversation about cutting costs. Cheaper dyes, faster machines, new suppliers in distant countries. The words sting, but Giuliana does not protest. Yet, instead, she returns to her small office and sketches out a new design, bold and uncompromising. External voices grow louder. The fashion world is changing, and Benetton is swept up in the storm. Giuliana stands at the crossroads of past and future, tradition and innovation. Her struggle is both personal and universal. In the place where color was once everything, shades of gray begin to appear. The heart of Benetton beats on, quietly, insistently, but even the steadiest hands sometimes have to let go. Chapter 5: Gilberto and Carlo, Power Behind the Scenes. In Treviso, the Benetton siblings are a symphony, but not every note is played in the open. While Giuliana shapes yarn into dreams and Luciano chases bold horizons, two brothers move in quieter shadows. Gilberto and Carlo. Their names rarely grace magazine covers, but their fingerprints are all over the empire's blueprints. Gilberto is the numbers man. He carries himself with a calm that unsettles even Luciano. In meetings, he listens more than he speaks, absorbing every detail, every risk, every possibility. Instead of chasing headlines, Gilberto chases margins. He spends hours poring over ledgers, double-checking cash flow, mapping out expansion plans with surgical precision. Carlo, by contrast, lives in the heartbeat of the factory floor. He is not swayed by balance sheets or branding. For Carlo, the pulse of Benetton is found in the whirring machines, the scent of fresh-dyed wool, the hum of workers in synchronized motion. He has an engineer's mind, built for solving problems no one else sees. He walks the production lines, eyes scanning for inefficiencies, hands running along freshly woven fabric. It's never good enough for him. Always there is a better way. Their differences are a kind of friction that powers the business. Gilberto builds walls of caution. Carlo tears them down in the pursuit of speed and quality. Some days, friction becomes fire. Intense boardroom discussions, Gilberto advocates for gradual growth, controlled spending, methodical expansion. Carlo, impatient, wants new technology, more output, faster turnaround. Each brother pushes the other, neither yielding easily. Luciano, ever the showman, floats above the fray. He dreams in color. He wants more stores, more countries, more risks. Gilberto is the anchor. He runs calculations late into the night, warning of overreach, cautioning against debts that can't be repaid. Carlo raises production targets, refusing to accept that limits exist. Giuliana, caught in the middle, tries to mediate, but it is Gilberto and Carlo who shape the company's spine. In the late 1970s, the stakes are rising. Benetton's colorful sweaters are hot commodities, but expansion costs money. Gilberto crafts a web of banking relationships across Europe. He negotiates loans on favorable terms, sometimes winning over hard-nosed bankers with patience alone. To outsiders, he seems emotionless. To those who know him, he is simply focused. Every lira is accounted for, every investment scrutinized. Carlo prepares for a different kind of battle. He obsesses over efficiency, convinced that the only way to outpace rivals is through innovation on the factory floor. He pushes for automation, streamlined logistics, and tighter quality controls. He accepts nothing less than perfection, and his standards are exhausting. Workers learn to fear his sudden visits, but respect his relentless drive. Under his watch, wasted material becomes rare, broken machines disappear overnight, and missed deadlines are considered personal failures. The brothers rarely clash directly, but their philosophies collide at the edges. Gilberto insists on budgets. Carlo finds ways to stretch them. If a new dyeing machine promises faster output, Carlo will argue for it, even if the cost is steep. Gilberto demands the numbers, the guarantees, the proof. More often than not, Luciano sides with Carlo. He loves momentum, forward motion, the thrill of the new. Gilberto is used to being outvoted, but he never stops fighting for discipline. As Benetton's reputation grows, so too does the complexity of the business. Franchises spread across Western Europe. Supply chains lengthen, regulations multiply, tax codes become a maze. Gilberto's cautious approach is increasingly tested. Investors expect miracles. Banks demand returns. A single misstep could bring the whole enterprise down. In private, Gilberto grows more guarded, more obsessed with controlling risk. Carlo, meanwhile, is rarely seen outside the factories. He is happiest in his element, sleeves rolled up, overseeing the installation of new machinery or recalibrating workflows. When a shipment is delayed or a batch of sweaters fails inspection, it's Carlo who rolls up his sleeves and gets his hands dirty. His style is rough, sometimes abrasive, but his results speak for themselves. Production numbers soar, costs drop. Benetton becomes a model of industrial efficiency. Others try and fail to copy. Yet the family's unity is under pressure. As more money flows into the business, decisions are scrutinized more intensely. Small disagreements echo louder. The stakes are higher. Luciano's big-picture dreams need Gilberto's funding and Carlo's execution, but each brother is jealous of his own turf. When a store opening is delayed because Carlo refuses to compromise on quality, Luciano fumes. When Gilberto declines to sign off on a risky expansion plan, tempers flare. Giuliana, always the artist, tries to soothe the tension. She gently reminds her brothers that the heart of Benetton is built on trust. But trust, in a family business, is a hard currency. Each sibling knows the other's weaknesses too well. Old rivalries from childhood resurface in meetings. Small slights are remembered. No one walks away from the table entirely satisfied. As the 1980s dawn, Benetton is on the verge of something enormous. There are whispers of opening a flagship store in New York. The world seems within reach, but under the surface, cracks begin to show. Gilberto worries that the pace is unsustainable. Carlo is restless, convinced they can go further, faster. Luciano sees opportunity everywhere, blind to the risks. Sometimes, in the silence after a late meeting, Gilberto lingers in his office, staring at a ledger. He knows what's at stake. He remembers the lean years, the days when a single unpaid invoice could mean disaster. He is proud of what they've built, but terrified of losing control. Across town, Carlo is already plotting the next upgrade, the next innovation, the next leap forward. The four siblings have reached a new frontier. Their success is undeniable, but so are their differences. Each believes in Benetton. Each claims to know what's best for the brand. But how long can four visions pull in the same direction before something gives? It's not just colorful sweaters that set Benetton apart anymore. It's the fragile chemistry of its family, and the next chapter will test just how strong those bonds really are. Chapter 6: Fashion, Fame, and Fury, the Toscani Era. The city of New York breathes in color for the first time. Outside the brand-new Benetton store on Madison Avenue, a restless crowd gathers. The air is thick with anticipation. Inside, Luciano Benetton stands behind the glass, his nerves barely hidden. This is the American debut. The siblings had dreamed of global expansion, but standing here, Luciano feels the weight of it all. He isn't looking at sweaters, though. He's captivated by the window display, a riot of vivid knitwear, arranged not by fashion rules, but by sheer audacity. This is no accident. It's the handiwork of Oliviero Toscani, the man Luciano calls Benetton's wild card. Toscani, an uncompromising photographer, had just joined the team. He promises to make Benetton unforgettable. From the first meeting, Toscani is different. He doesn't ask about fabric or price. He asks what Benetton stands for. He wants to know what the siblings fear. Luciano is fascinated. Giuliana is skeptical. Gilberto, cautious as always, worries about risk. Toscani brushes their doubts aside. The world, he insists, craves truth and a jolt of shock. It's 1982 when the first of Toscani's campaigns appears. No models in traditional poses, no smiling faces. Instead, a stark image, 3 identical sweaters, each in a different color, draped over 3 identical hangers. Underneath, a single line, all the colors of the world. The meaning is clear, but the tone is new, brash, direct, unapologetic. The public takes notice. Sales in Europe jump. Stores fill with young customers, drawn by the brand's vibrant promise. Benetton is no longer just a fashion label. It's a statement about inclusion, diversity, and the breaking of old boundaries. The colors become iconic, but there's more. Toscani refuses to stop at simple slogans. His next campaign is more daring, a group of children, each from a different continent, leaning together. Their skin tones form a living rainbow. There's no talk of sweaters. The image spreads across billboards and magazine pages, sparking conversation in a dozen languages. Some call it genius. Others accuse Benetton of using social issues to sell sweaters. The press is divided. In Paris, critics praise the boldness. In Rome, conservative voices demand a boycott. For Luciano, the attention is intoxicating. For Gilberto, it feels dangerous. Within the family, Toscani's vision stirs old tensions. Giuliana wonders if their message has become too loud, too political. Carlo is thrilled by the free publicity, but worries about backlash. At board meetings, voices are raised. Benetton is growing faster than ever, but the culture inside is shifting. The siblings sense they are riding a tiger. Toscani, meanwhile, has no intention of slowing down. He pitches campaign after campaign, each more provocative than the last. One features a nun and a priest in a forbidden kiss. Another shows a newborn baby, still attached to the umbilical cord, crying out into the world. There are images of AIDS patients, of prisoners on death row. No sweaters in sight, just raw, polarizing truth. Every campaign generates headlines. Some countries ban the ads, others make them front-page news. Benetton's stores are mobbed by curious shoppers and sometimes by protesters. The company's logo appears everywhere, from buses in Tokyo to magazines in Buenos Aires. For Benetton, the gamble pays off at first. Sales break records. The siblings are honored as visionaries. Benetton becomes a subject of academic studies, a case of marketing genius. But with each campaign, the stakes rise. The boundary between shock and offense blurs. By the early 1990s, Benetton is at its zenith. The company boasts thousands of stores across the globe. It is the most recognized Italian brand after Ferrari. The siblings travel between capitals, invited to galas and television interviews. Yet, in quiet moments, they sense something slipping away. Inside the boardroom, Toscani demands more creative control. He wants to push the campaigns even further. Luciano supports him, seduced by the idea that art and commerce can be merged. Giuliana and Gilberto, however, worry that the soul of the company, its Italian craftsmanship, its family roots, is being overshadowed by controversy. The press begins to ask uncomfortable questions. Is Benetton truly committed to the causes it highlights, or is it simply using controversy as a marketing tool? In interviews, Luciano insists their intentions are sincere, but not everyone is convinced. The siblings themselves are split. Some nights, after fierce debates, Gilberto quietly admits he misses the old days, when sweaters, not scandals, were what defined Benetton. Carlo, ever the pragmatist, argues that attention is the currency of the modern world, better to be criticized than ignored. Meanwhile, Toscani's next campaign has everyone on edge. He wants to use a photo of a blood-stained uniform from the Balkan Wars, no product in sight. The image is powerful. It sparks outrage in several countries. Diplomats call Benetton reckless. Some retailers refuse to carry new collections. Sales in key markets dip. At family dinners, the mood has changed. The siblings talk less about business, more about damage control. The Benettons still own the world's retail stage, but now they are defending themselves as much as celebrating. Investors, too, become anxious. Controversy, after all, can cut both ways. Yet amid the storm, Benetton's influence on culture cannot be denied. Young designers copy the aesthetic. Advertisers mimic the style. Fashion critics debate whether the brand has become more than clothes or less. In Milan, an art critic calls Benetton the most important Italian export since neorealism. By the mid-1990s, Toscani's relationship with the family is fraying. He pushes for total creative autonomy. The siblings hesitate, worried about losing control of their own legacy. Boardroom fights spill into the press. Rumors swirl about Toscani leaving. For now, he remains, but trust in each other, in the mission, is harder to summon. Outside, Benetton's stores still attract crowds. The colors are as bright as ever, but the world is changing. Fast fashion chains, nimble and ruthless, are gaining ground. Shoppers move more quickly now, their attention spans shorter. The siblings, once united by ambition, now disagree about almost everything. Still, for one glittering moment, Benetton is everywhere. Their advertising has forced the world to look, to react, to argue. They have become icons, not just of fashion, but of controversy. The company is powerful, the family famous, the brand impossible to ignore. But beneath the surface, the price of fame is rising, and the next storm is already gathering, out of sight, just beyond the horizon. Chapter 7: Succession and Strain, the Next Generation. The first cracks in any dynasty often appear in silence. In the early 2000s, the Benetton siblings meet more frequently behind closed doors. Their famous unity, the hallmark of their rise, now wavers under the weight of succession. Each sibling is older, each more aware that their era is ending. Decisions that once felt natural now become points of tension. Outside the boardroom, the world has changed. Fast fashion giants swarm the market, promising newer styles at lower prices and breakneck speed. Tech transforms retail. E-commerce reshapes consumer habits overnight. The Benettons, once at the vanguard, feel the ground shift beneath their feet. Inside, the question everyone dreads lurks behind every agenda item: who takes over? Family pride collides with business reality. The four siblings have built everything together, but handing over control means giving up part of themselves. Their children are grown. Some have worked in the business. Others have chosen different paths. Not all want to inherit the burden. Not all are considered ready. Professional managers, outsiders by Benetton standards, are brought in to stabilize the group. Their approach is cold, calculated. Numbers replace intuition. Spreadsheets outweigh sentiment. For the siblings accustomed to tight family control, this new way feels alien. But the numbers are impossible to ignore. Sales are declining. Market share is slipping. Change is not just prudent, it has become essential. Arguments flare, sometimes over strategy, sometimes over legacy. Luciano pushes for innovation. Gilberto demands caution. Giuliana, who once knitted the very first sweaters, struggles most with letting go. Carlo, ever practical, tries to mediate, but the family dynamic, so powerful at their peak, now becomes an obstacle. Every discussion is entangled with decades of shared victories and private resentments. In public, the Benetton name still commands respect, but internally, anxieties grow. The siblings fear dilution of their vision. They worry newcomers will erase what made the brand unique, but there is no avoiding the facts. Competitors like Zara and H&M are eating into their core business faster than they can react. By 2006, the writing is on the wall. The stock market punishes underperformance without mercy. Investors, restless and impatient, demand results. The Benetton family, unwilling to watch their company be torn apart by outside pressures, makes a decisive move. They take Benetton Group private again, delisting it from the Milan Stock Exchange. It is a radical, almost desperate act, meant to buy time, regain control, and reset the future on their own terms. For the siblings, the choice is heartbreaking, but it also brings relief. No more quarterly earnings calls. No more anonymous shareholders questioning the value of their legacy. For now, at least, decisions return to the family table. But the process of stepping back is messy and slow. The next generation assembles children, nephews, nieces, all of them raised in the shadow of the brand. Some are ambitious, eager to prove themselves. Others are cautious, wary of the glare that once seemed glamorous. Family summits stretch into the night. Arguments flare over titles, responsibilities, even office locations. For the first time, the siblings recognize how much of their identity is entangled with the business. To let go is to become ordinary, to trust in those who did not build the empire from scratch. Old memories surface. Stories of the first store, of late-night deliveries, of battles won together. The past is both motivation and burden. Professional managers, meanwhile, press for clarity. They want defined roles and streamlined operations. They propose strategies that clash with family tradition. The siblings bristle at talk of layoffs or radical rebranding. Every suggestion feels like an erasure of their work. Yet even as debates rage, the world keeps moving. Retail is unforgiving. Consumers want faster fashion, cheaper prices, more online options. At every family gathering, the atmosphere is tense. No one wants to be the sibling who drops the torch. No one wants to be left out. Luciano, always the public face, is especially reluctant. For decades, he has defended the company in interviews and arguments alike. Now, his voice is just one among many. Giuliana, who remembers every pattern and fiber, feels her relevance slipping away with each new season. Gilberto and Carlo focus on financial stability, but even that becomes harder as margins shrink. In 2012, the siblings make a decision that feels both inevitable and surreal. They step back from daily management, formally transferring control to the next generation and a cadre of seasoned professionals. The transition is awkward, fraught with emotion. The siblings remain on the board, their influence real but diminished. Their era is unmistakably ending. For a moment, the future seems full of possibility. New blood brings new ideas. The hope is that, freed from market scrutiny and intergenerational gridlock, Benetton can adapt and fight back. But the realities are harsh. Rivals have a head start. The brand's rebellious energy, the engine of its golden age, proves hard to sustain under spreadsheets and cautious optimism. Outsiders notice. Industry analysts predict a decline. Longtime employees sense the shift in power. For the family, the change is both a relief and a wound. They have saved the company from one kind of disaster, only to face another: the slow erasure of identity, meaning, and memory. What does it mean to hand over a legacy? Is it self-preservation or surrender? The Benetton siblings, once inseparable, now see each other more on holidays than in boardrooms. Their story becomes something to tell the grandchildren, a story of colors, ambition, controversy, and hard choices. Yet the real test has only begun. Outside, the store lights are still bright, but the faces behind the counters are new. The empire, for all its history, stands on uncertain ground. Not with a crash, but with a careful, cautious handover, the first generation's reign is over. What comes next will not be decided by tradition, but by survival. And for a family built on boldness, that may be the hardest lesson of all. Chapter 8: Scandal and Scrutiny, Rana Plaza and the Price of Growth. April 2013. In the heart of Bangladesh, a building known as Rana Plaza collapses. More than 1,000 garment workers die beneath the rubble. Images of devastation circle the globe. Rescue workers, anguished families, and piles of broken concrete dominate the news. The world learns a new truth about the cost of cheap fashion. Amid the wreckage, labels are found. Some are instantly recognizable. One of them reads, "Made for Benetton." The connection is not unique. Dozens of international brands had garments made there. But Benetton's name stands out. Once a symbol of bright, optimistic rebellion, the brand is now tangled in a tragedy it never intended. Reporters descend on Treviso and London and New York. They ask the same question: how could this happen? Benetton's history as an industry pioneer is part of the story. But so is the drive for growth, the pressure for lower prices, and the relentless need to compete. At Benetton headquarters, an urgent silence falls. The siblings are older now, but the old patterns re-emerge. Private meetings, late-night phone calls, and the weight of public outrage hang heavy in the air. For once, the arguments are not about color palettes or ad campaigns. They are about responsibility. Some staffers urge immediate action: acknowledge, apologize, compensate. Others warn against accepting blame for a supply chain they do not fully control. Behind the scenes, the family is divided. Luciana worries about reputation. Giuliana grieves for the victims. Gilberto focuses on legal consequences. Carlo, always cautious, urges careful investigation before any statement. Outside the boardroom, activists protest in the street. Social media seethes with anger. Investigators and journalists dig deeper, uncovering a chain of subcontractors and brokers that stretches across continents. The boundaries of accountability blur. Benetton's leadership issues a statement. They express sorrow for the loss of life and promise an internal review of their sourcing practices. But their first words are measured, even guarded. Critics accuse them of stonewalling. The pressure intensifies. Other brands sign compensation funds. Benetton hesitates. The siblings, once so united, feel the strain of public expectation. Every decision is dissected in newspapers and on television. Friends and business partners call, offering support, sometimes advice, sometimes warning. For decades, Benetton had defined itself by controversy. Its ads were meant to provoke, but never like this. Now, the family faces a different kind of scrutiny, one that is not about taste or style, but about life and death. Months pass. In Dhaka, grief turns to anger and then to activism. In Italy, Benetton's offices receive thousands of emails. Employees field calls from customers questioning ethics and values. Sales figures slip. For the first time, some franchisees threaten to remove the Benetton name. The company commissions investigations into its supply chain. Corporate statements grow more detailed but less convincing. Each press release is dissected for signs of contrition or evasion. The siblings are photographed looking tired, their confidence shaken. Inside the family, conversations grow tense. Luciano urges decisive action. Giuliana writes personal notes to the victims' families, but these are private gestures. Gilberto consults lawyers. Carlo consults risk analysts. Consensus is elusive. The world expects swift justice, but the boardroom moves in slow circles. In the end, Benetton joins the compensation efforts, but late, too late, some say, for public forgiveness. The gesture is real, but the brand's reputation remains stained. For journalists, the story is no longer just about one tragedy. It is now about an entire way of doing business. Rana Plaza is exposed as a symptom, not an exception. The Benetton siblings, used to controlling their image, now appear behind the curve. Their signature boldness falters. Their ability to set the agenda slips away. The brand's legacy, built on daring, is now shadowed by doubt. In private, the family confronts questions they had never asked before. Had their global ambitions blinded them to the real cost of expansion? Was there a moment, years earlier, when a different choice could have made a difference? Some nights, these questions echo in empty offices long after the lights go out. Business analysts begin to chart the downturn. Customers in Europe and America grow uneasy. The idea of ethical consumption spreads, and Benetton is no longer seen as progressive. Instead, they are seen as part of the old guard, fashion giants slow to change, slow to listen. The siblings' dynamic changes under the weight of scandal. They speak more cautiously, trust outsiders less, and spend more time with crisis consultants than designers or buyers. Some employees notice a new culture of fear, a reluctance to take risks. Others, loyal to the founding vision, hope that self-examination will lead to a rebirth. But the world moves on. Rivals with agile supply chains and clean reputations surge ahead. Fast fashion, once a Benetton innovation, becomes the very force that threatens to erase Benetton itself. As months turn to years, the tragedy at Rana Plaza remains an unresolved point of pain. For the families in Bangladesh, for the activists in Europe, and for the Benettons themselves, it marks the beginning of a new era, not just for the company, but for the entire retail industry. Now every decision the family makes is weighed against that day. Every expansion, every ad campaign, every new product line is shadowed by the memory of catastrophe. In boardrooms and living rooms, the question is always the same. Can the empire adapt without sacrificing the values it once claimed to represent? The siblings, for all their accomplishments, cannot escape this reckoning. Their story, once a celebration of Italian ingenuity, is now a cautionary tale. When the next crisis comes, it will not be a surprise. The world has learned to expect it, so have the Benettons. In the aftermath of Rana Plaza, the family's empire is examined like never before. Governments, Watchdogs and consumers all demand transparency. Every weakness is magnified. Every delay is suspect. The cost of growth is now measured not just in profit, but in lives. The Benettons' legacy hangs in the balance. Old triumphs seem distant. The future, always uncertain, now feels marked by accountability more than ambition. And quietly, almost imperceptibly, the ground begins to shift beneath their feet. The next scandal is already taking shape, one that has nothing to do with sweaters and everything to do with concrete and steel. The sun sets on one battlefield as shadows gather on another. Chapter 9: Collapse and Crisis, Morandi Bridge and the End of an Era. It is the morning of August 14, 2018. Rain falls over Genoa as commuters make their way across the Morandi Bridge. The structure, a vital artery of the city, has stood since the 1960s. Trucks and cars crawl along its length, unaware that today will mark the end of an era. Suddenly, a section collapses. Concrete and vehicles plunge into the void. Lives are lost in seconds, 43 souls gone, families destroyed, a city stunned. Across Italy and the world, news of the disaster spreads with breathtaking speed. Images of the shattered bridge dominate headlines. For most, it is a tragedy. For the Benetton family, it is something more, a reckoning decades in the making. At Lancia, the company responsible for the bridge's maintenance, is part of Edizioni, the investment arm controlled by the Benettons. Now, their fortune and reputation are inextricably linked to the ruins in Genoa. In Rome, politicians sense the public's fury. Protests erupt in the streets. Newspapers demand answers. Why did the bridge fail? Who is to blame? Overnight, the Benettons' business empire becomes a symbol of greed and neglect. For years, the family had quietly built their holdings far beyond sweaters and storefronts. Highways, airports, toll booths, these were the new pillars of their fortune. Now, those pillars are shaking. Inside the Benetton circle, the atmosphere is one of disbelief, then panic. The siblings, once united by ambition, now sit through marathon meetings, surrounded by lawyers and crisis managers. Their faces are drawn, voices hushed. Gilberto, the strategist who steered the family into infrastructure, is hit especially hard. He has always been private, content to let his brothers and sister take the spotlight. Now, responsibility weighs on him alone. The days after the collapse are a blur of accusations and denials. Government officials vow to punish those responsible. Victims, families demand justice. The public, already shaken by past scandals, wants blood. Edizioni's offices are besieged by journalists. The Benettons are accused of putting profit above safety, of hiding behind complex corporate structures, of turning their backs on the Italian people. Behind closed doors, the siblings grapple with an impossible dilemma. Should they fight back, risking further outrage, or capitulate, risking their legacy? As the investigation unfolds, a grim reality sets in. Inspectors reveal years of neglected maintenance. Leaked memos suggest cost-cutting measures and ignored warnings. Each revelation is another blow to the Benettons' already battered image. For Gilberto, the pressure is suffocating. He has spent decades building the family's infrastructure empire. Now he watches it unravel piece by piece. Friends notice that he seems diminished, haunted by the scale of the disaster. He withdraws from public life, rarely leaving his home. In late 2018, just months after the collapse, Gilberto dies. The official cause is illness, but those close to him know the weight he carried. His death marks the end of an era for the family. Nothing will ever be the same. The siblings are left without their architect, their strategist, their anchor. For the first time in decades, the Benettons seem vulnerable. The fallout is relentless. Parliament convenes special sessions to debate the future of Italy's highways. The government launches legal proceedings to revoke Lancia's concessions. Protests outside Benetton stores become a regular occurrence. Every statement by the family is dissected in the press. Their apologies are met with skepticism, their silence with suspicion. Internally, the family is divided. Some urge defiance, fight the allegations, protect the business. Others argue for retreat. They fear for their safety, their privacy, their children. The next generation, just beginning to take the reins, is thrust into the spotlight. They inherited privilege. Now they inherit crisis. Negotiations with the government drag on for months, then years. The terms are never favorable. Atlantia's value plummets. Bankers, lawyers, and consultants stream in and out of Ediziani's offices. Each week brings a new headline, a new demand, a new humiliation. The Benetton name, once associated with Italian style and innovation, becomes shorthand for corporate failure. As pressure mounts, more details about the bridge's problems come to light. Reports reveal years of warnings that went unheeded. Engineers speak of crumbling concrete and missed inspections. The public's patience snaps. Politicians promise that the Benettons will pay one way or another. By 2019, the government has made up its mind. The Benettons must surrender their hold on Italy's highways. Autostrade per l'Italia, the crown jewel of their infrastructure empire, is now a liability. For the siblings, it is a bitter pill to swallow. They had spent years amassing these assets. Now, they are forced to give them up to placate a nation in mourning. The sale is messy, protracted, and public. Negotiations play out in the media, every figure scrutinized. Critics accuse the family of dragging their feet, of bargaining for the highest possible price. The Benettons protest that they are being scapegoated, that no one could have foreseen the collapse. The arguments fall flat. The world is not interested in excuses. In 2022, the deal is final. The Benetton family relinquishes control of Autostrade per l'Italia. Decades of work are undone in a stroke. The infrastructure arm of their fortune, once a source of pride, is now a memory. The siblings, who once reveled in their status as Italy's most powerful family, face the cold reality of disgrace. The loss is more than financial. For the siblings, it is a personal defeat. The bridge collapse has stained their legacy far beyond the business pages. Longtime allies distance themselves. Invitations grow scarce. In boardrooms and social circles, the Benetton name is met with discomfort or silence. Inside the family, wounds fester. Trust, once unshakable, is now fragile. Arguments flare over strategy, succession, blame. Some retreat into private lives, seeking solace in anonymity. Others remain, determined to salvage what is left. But the empire they built together is fractured, perhaps forever. Italy, meanwhile, moves on. A new bridge rises over Genoa, built with public funds and national pride. Politicians promise it will stand as a monument to accountability. For the Benettons, there will be no such monument. Their chapter in this story ends not with triumph, but with apology, exile, and loss. The siblings, once at the pinnacle of Italian business, are now at their lowest point. The vision that united them as children has brought them full circle, back to uncertainty, back to fear. And somewhere in the hills outside Treviso, the factories and offices of Benetton Group continue their quiet work. But the world is different now. The Benettons have learned that empires can fall as quickly as they rise. One crack, one moment, and everything changes. No one in the family sleeps quite as soundly as before. Not after Genoa, not ever again. Chapter 10: Legacy and Reckoning. What remains of the Benetton Empire? Today, the Benetton family fortune is only a shadow of its former dominance. Yet even diminished, it remains one of Italy's largest private fortunes. The sprawling holding company, Ediziani, still owns stakes in airports, telecom, and food. The family's influence stretches from Spanish motorways to luxury hotels across Europe. But everywhere, reminders of loss and scandal linger. The siblings era is over. New faces now fill the boardrooms and villas, sons, daughters, nieces, and nephews. Some, like Alessandro Benetton, try to project a new, modern image. They promise transparency, sustainability, and humility. Others keep their distance from the spotlight, wary of being defined by the past. The days when the Benettons defined Italian style are gone. Benetton Group, once the global trailblazer of fashion, is now just another player. Its stores attract fewer headlines and less controversy. The bold advertising campaigns that once shocked the world have faded to nostalgia. Sales figures no longer set records. The brand's relevance is a memory for older generations. Still, the Benetton name carries weight. It opens doors in finance, real estate, and the art world. In Treviso, the family's presence is woven into the local economy. Their philanthropy supports museums, hospitals, and culture. The family hopes these gestures will help repair their reputation. But rebuilding trust is slow and unpredictable. Privately, the next generation struggles with the inheritance of scandal. The conversation at family gatherings, once full of pride, now turns uneasy. Some advocate for bold restructures. Others wish to withdraw and protect what remains. All feel the weight of choices made by their parents and uncles. In public, the Benettons navigate a very different Italy. The country of tight-knit industrial families has loosened its grip. Scandals have made the Italian public skeptical of dynasties. Politicians now court voters with promises to rein in old business elites. The Benettons, once untouchable, are now just one more family under the microscope. For the broader business world, the Benetton story is a cautionary tale. At their peak, the siblings turned a small knitwear shop into a retail empire. They conquered foreign markets, revolutionized franchising, and made marketing artful and provocative. Their rise seemed unstoppable until it was. The first signs of decline were easy to ignore. Fast fashion brands copied and outpaced Benetton. Globalization brought both growth and risk. Factories moved abroad, supply chains grew complex, and suddenly, the brand's reputation rested on choices made far from Italy. Decisions about working conditions and cost-cutting became moral minefields. When disaster struck, whether in Bangladesh or Genoa, the family's name was front and center. No matter who was at fault, the Benettons paid the price in public trust. Years of carefully built image vanished almost overnight. Now every move is scrutinized. Charitable donations are met with suspicion. New investments draw protests and headlines. The message from the world is clear: wealth does not guarantee forgiveness. Inside their offices, the walls are lined with photographs from another age. Children smiling in sweaters, factory workers at their looms, the first New York store. These images once symbolized hope and pride. Today, they remind everyone how quickly fortunes can turn. For the younger Benettons, there is no easy roadmap forward. Some see opportunity in reimagining the family's legacy. They push for green initiatives, social responsibility, and digital transformation. Others urge caution, haunted by recent betrayals and failures. Every decision is heavy with the fear of a misstep. Yet the story is not only about loss. Despite everything, the Benettons' achievements endure in Italian business history. Their franchising model reshaped retail across Europe. Their advertising redefined the limits of public conversation. They proved that family, for all its tensions, can be a force of lasting ambition. But at what cost? The Benettons have learned the limits of control. They built a fortune on risk, then lost it to risk they couldn't foresee. Their unity was both their greatest asset and their deepest vulnerability. What remains is a paradox. The Benetton legacy is both a caution and an inspiration. equal parts success and warning. Their story is about color, creativity, and boldness. It is also about the price of power and how quickly admiration can turn to condemnation. Today, if you walk the quiet streets of Penzano, Veneto, you might pass the old Benetton factory. The buildings stand, quieter and less urgent than before. Nearby, modern offices buzz with newer, younger teams. The future is uncertain, but the Benetton presence is still felt, sometimes as pride, sometimes as a burden. The Italian press still watches the family closely. Any sign of tension or scandal becomes news. Bankers and politicians take their calls, but with new caution. The days of unquestioned deference are over. The Benetton name, once shorthand for style and innovation, now comes with a footnote. For the family, every meeting and decision is a balancing act. Do they protect the past or risk everything on a new future? Can they reclaim trust, or will they remain symbols of a fallen era? This is the reckoning that shadows every move. Would the founders, the original four siblings, recognize what their dream has become? Would they be proud, or would they see only the costs? These questions hang unresolved as the next generation tries to chart a course forward. In the end, the story of Benetton is not just about sweaters, highways, or fortunes. It is about a family's fight with itself and with the country that made it rich. It is about the temptations of ambition and the dangers of believing too much in one's own myth. What remains of the Benetton Empire? Enough to matter, enough to remind Italy and the world that behind every fortune lies a story of risk, of family, and of reckoning. The empire is no longer invincible, but its lesson endures long after the colors have faded. In the end, the Benetton legacy asks as much of its heirs as it once did of its founders. The question is simple, but the answer is not. What kind of story will the next chapter tell?